Well, Final Fantasy XIV is down for maintenance, so I might as well get this out of the way as soon as possible. So I'm reviewing One Piece today, and to start this off I've got a script, so I'll be reading that. So I'm not a very big TV watcher or even reviewer for that matter, and there's a lot to be said about the quality of some TV shows. With that said, let's review this deep fact from it. At some point or another, most of you have probably heard of One Piece, especially if you're in and around the internet. Whilst I can't comment on how others feel about it, I can tell you now, having watched every single episode myself, well, not every single episode, but still a good 1,000 odd episodes, I can say with great confidence I do not regret watching this. And stay tuned for the scrolling text off memory summary of One Piece, in case you don't like it or curious about what happens next, or if there's anything that might hook you into it, if you weren't impressed with the first few episodes. It's important to start with my first impressions of the series, if you can even call it that. Really, it's just one big lot of episodes with different arcs. Anyway, from what I had seen of it being advertised and memed upon, I wasn't very impressed with it. Not strong feelings. But I had a dislike for how the characters looked visually, and I had somehow had one of the later episodes spoiled to me, Wano arc to be specific. As the animation from towards the end of it seemed familiar. But other than that, I just didn't like how it looked when I just first saw it. And boy was I wrong. Well, mostly, as you'll hear later. Much like my situation with other cartoons, I just didn't like the appearance of, or the art style of this series. So, like those, One Piece blew me away with its animation, at least post Skypiea arc anyway. To start with, One Piece is a manga by Ichiro Oda. It's not only written and illustrated by him as well, but what blows my mind is how well it translates to anime. Albeit with some apparent cuts and a lower quality animation in the early days, but still, the series is fucking amazing. I think if shows my personal favourite or top title easily, to list a few I watched before this that I really loved: Dark, Breaking Bad, The Simpsons, Futurama, Gravity Falls, Amphibia, and the Castlevania anime. But never has a show done so many genres all at once. In fact, it's hard to describe One Piece's true genre because, other than the obvious, it branches out into different types. You've got the obvious action adventure, but you've also got story-rich, heavy world-building, character development, diversity, romance, even in some places excluding the perv scenes, slice of life for sure, and a great soundtrack. And best yet, it's a comedy, and it can also be serious and dark at times, and be extremely dramatic. Admittedly, this is a niche thing I'm about to bring up, but this anime will not appeal to those who like slow story pacing, because holy shit, the story is slow. It's good story, don't get me wrong, but it's so damn slow. And you see a battle take place for 5 episodes straight with no progress whatsoever, and it becomes frustrating. And they can be good battles though, despite that, but this is something that could be improved. The show has a bit of everything too, like drama and personal issues as well, like tons. It genuinely stuns me how one man could create such complex characters and story. It's actually unprecedented given like Dark had like 3 writers or something, and Breaking Bad had meetings before each meeting, each episode I mean, to make sure they had the perfect episode. I've never ever seen a series done so well like One Piece has. I forgot to mention, but there are also cliches put on their head. Like, this isn't your ordinary hero fantasy, trust me on this. So, I gotta list off the good parts of the anime in short. I'll try to anyway. First thing that was most apparent to me, it has a great English dub. This one is most obvious to me. The start felt a bit iffy, but it began to improve after Skypiea and peaks in Enies Lobby. I've seen clips of the Japanese version and it isn't nearly as good. I don't get the same vibe from it either, and I did used to watch Japanese versions of anime due to the stigma of bad dubs, but in the end this seems to be a per anime problem. One Piece isn't that, fortunately, outside of the lack of dub songs anyway, later. Next is episodes are technically short, and yeah, like these range from 14 to 20 minutes long, with the average being 16 minutes, so no worries about not having the attention span for this show. And this is also because of like recaps and intros take up most time anyway, which is one of the bad points I'll go into later. Animation, this gets better after Skypiea and peaks in more the Wano arc, but it's also how they animate. The 3D isn't bad outside of the high frame rate, and sometimes they do a 2D 3D animation, which is very good on top of that. But they really utilise the animation to exaggerate every possible feature. I can't comment on whether this is the same as the manga, but like, if the icons or something are from that, then it's such a good idea. I love it every time it appears, it never fails to make me laugh. The next good thing is the soundtrack. They capture perfectly what the show is about, and portraying sad music for sad bits, mysterious music for mysterious, and battle music for battle, and also we are on a cruise for the most epic Luffy battles. Yes, they do throwbacks to some of the old tracks. It's amazing. Next is character design. Every character is different and somehow not cliche. I was very surprised to see the diversity in character design, even among the Straw Hat Pirates. Every character is just so different from the last, and even the villains are either outdoing others in terms of evil or are actually doing something different. Also, I noticed Oda doesn't seem to forget old characters, which is amazing. There are some that don't show in the anime, I think, but they do appear in the manga from what I've heard. And what's so interesting about this is characters of previous arcs make an appearance even like 1,000 or more episodes into the show, which is insane. Yeah, but the next thing is story. It's complex, it's very well thought out. Just when you think you know everything and have solved every mystery, there'll be something else. In fact, it's so good it's hard to even sum up in 10,000 words, because each detail is pretty damn important. But with that said, there are some of the bad points of the anime, so I'll list them here. First thing is the possible content from the manga, which could have easily been added if you skipped the intro and recaps. Although this would require obviously hiring more animators, but even then, I think it's a really bad excuse. Like, recaps instead of good quality animation, and the fucking bits that are cut out, it just makes no sense. Yeah, that sort of ties into the next bad point, intro and recaps. So tying into that last one, these are mixed, and they removed outros of the Enies lobby arc, I think, which kind of sucks, because I like the dub outros and even like the songs as well. And some of them were really good. Like, I liked Eternal Pose, that was an amazing song. Sometimes the boy band stuff is a bit but that was actually good. I actually learned it on guitar, I liked it that much. Yeah, like, the problem is they stopped doing them. I mean, they're saying with outros. Oh yeah, they stopped dubbing them, I mean, that's what it was. Yeah, they stopped dubbing intros for some reason, where they used to. But this brings up the other problem. The recaps are excessive and make for terrible binge watching, which for a series this big, and where they do later like special episodes and even recap episodes, it's unnecessary, and it should be their own thing in the form of, like, as I said here before, a recap episode. So not a canon episode, by the way. And there are unfortunately like of thousands, there's like 3 or 4 recap episodes, or maybe more actually, and it sucks. Next problem is randomly inserting filler for what I assume is movie content into the episodes, where Crunchyroll and other hosts don't put the movies in between. So I thought there were pauses when we finished the Dressrosa arc, but apparently not. It happened during the Wano arc too, and these have no place here, and add nothing to the story. And I did watch the movies after, and there are at least like 4 or 5 dubbed ones that I could even pay attention to. And they had no significance, with the exception of maybe one time to the Wano arc in the film Stampede. The next problem is lazy dubbing, and whilst the voice acting is undoubtedly good, the dub is noticeably more lazy after the Skypiea arc, and I think I just mentioned this actually earlier. Why am I mentioning it again? I did proofread this. There's a niche case I can bring up actually. There's a character introduced later called Uta, who basically sings, and they didn't even bother dubbing her song. And they'd go from this girl's voice to what I assume is like an early 30s or late 30s aged Japanese singer, and it doesn't work. I don't even know why they bother dubbing these episodes or movie for that matter. It just makes no sense there. The next issue is crossover episodes. I'm not a fan of these. Whilst again there may be some cool factor to it, they don't make for good watching, and they often lack a voice dub as well. So they have no place here in my honest opinion, not to mention how they're drastically different to the story of One Piece. Next issue is pacing, and I did bring this up earlier briefly. So for some reason Oda wants doing one battle assume per chapter to spreading it out over multiple. Because believe it or not, sometimes the battles actually took place in an entire episode in the anime. And it breaks the pacing too much when they do it span across multiple episodes. It really makes you want to see the rest of the battle to reach its conclusion and move on to the next, but no, they're all spread out very stupidly. It makes it hard to track what's going on sometimes. The next problem is flashback episodes / inserts. Not to be mistaken for recaps, but these are annoying to watch after a while. We've seen multiple times how Luffy and Shanks met, and how he got the straw hat, and how Shanks lost his arm. It's not a spoiler at this point, because it literally happens every 50 episodes or so. And you keep seeing this again and again, and it gets annoying. Next problem is no masculine women after the Arabasta arc. Maybe I haven't noticed, but all the women since then have either been hourglass figures or blobs, for lack of a better term. Literally look like blobs, I'm not joking. I commend the unique muscle-bound black female character in the Arabasta arc. She had such a cool design, but since then we haven't seen anyone quite like her. And it sucks, honestly. Not to mention, a lot of the women shown don't really have much strength either, or depicted as that anyway. And this aspect does really kind of suck, especially if you know Zoro's backstory, where that very much wasn't the case. Anyway, next thing is animation. Before the Davy Backfire arc, the animation was sloppy as hell. It was embarrassingly so. You get still frames where nothing happened, or really out of place. That was a tongue twister. Animations. One that comes to mind, still to an extent, is during the Arabasta arc. Although this is more to do with the editing, I think. Sanji has this weird kick fight with Bon Clay, and it's just so fucking unsettling. It goes on for a whole 20 seconds or something. It's odd. And no dialogue as well, I think, if I remember correctly. But it's just so odd. It's smooth, but compared to still frames, it's slightly better. Anyway, next bad thing, and this will be no surprise, I think, if anyone's watched anime anyway. Sussy character design and animation. Anime has a reputation for sexualizing minors, and sadly this is no exception. Though it could probably be traced back to Oda in all honesty, but I can't exactly quote that. But I didn't even know what characters were minors or not because of how they were designed. As a result, that leads to headcanons because I don't actually say the age in the show, I forgot to mention that. Chopper looks like a child, Luffy seems to be a teen, and Nami seems to be a teen. And later characters like Rebecca and Carrot, who are so overly sexualised. I literally thought were adults. But no, they're apparently all 17 or under. That was before the 2-year gap anyway. But, like, wait, what was I saying? The Rebecca and Cara after, so, yeah, it's all extremely suspect. Like, there's a time and place for this sort of thing, but it doesn't belong here. The next problem is strained edit / error. That makes life of bad situations just like one niche nitpick of an episode. During the Sabaody arc, there is a few scenes where it gets dark, but the problem isn't that it was dark. The problem was the music. They played cheerful music over these scenes when the situation was anything but. I don't know why it happened, but it seemed very off to me. Like, I can't even compare it because it's sort of a spoiler, but holy shit. Like, it's terrible. So, now that all the points are over, I've got some interesting things here, and I'll conclude with, I think, a theory, and I do the recommendation. So, having seen every episode, it's hard to say what I like about them because they are just generally good. In fact, in each review I do, I tend to make notes on the reactions of each episode or thing that I've watched or obviously participated in. I did a Control F and looked for the episode ratings that I gave and made a rough estimate of how many reviews I put on each episode. So here's the stats. Good episodes is around 1025 out of 1128 episodes. These are episodes I thought were very good or enjoyable to watch and provided some sustenance. The next rating I got is okay episodes, just like not good but not bad. 90 out of the 1128. And as I said, a rough estimate, so it's not exact. But yeah, like these weren't anything special, and they had some good moments, but not enough to make it sort of stand out. And as for the bad episodes, or terrible episodes, 10, roughly. Just 10. Episodes that just didn't do anything, or weren't good, or couldn't engage me, or just in bad taste. So yeah, like the fact that it's so rare is a good thing. It's like 1% or under, actually. Like, even including like the okay episodes, it's like still a small percentage. It was like 5% or something. So, like, given it's such a huge series, it's impressive. So yeah. As for the movies, well, I watched them all. I finished every episode simply because there's too many episodes. What did I say here? Oh, after I finished every episode, yeah. So yeah, I watched them. But with that said, I can strongly recommend the One Piece anime. Yes, it's a long watch, but it's so worth it, and the characters are so lovable in their own ways. The stories are so well put together, it's funny, it's sad, it has everything. You'll laugh and cry. Before I do the summary of what I've wrote anyway, I want to make some predictions for the series, so spoilers. And it's all mysteries. And as of these were predictions as of the end of the Wano arc and a bit in the Egghead Island arc, because that's the one that's sort of started as I'm making this. So, first theory is Luffy's father may not be Dragon, but rather Gold D. Roger. They look so eerily similar, in fact, and seem to act like so too, based on the flashbacks we saw of Gold D. Roger. I'm unsure of the timeline of Roger's execution and Ace's birth, but he'd probably fit that in somehow. Not to mention, Ace's mother is probably still alive somewhere, and Luffy's maybe as well. Although my secondary theory that would be that Luffy is not of human origin, and is in fact an orphan or maybe celestial dragon, rescued by the Revolutionary Army Dragon. That's a relation. That's a confusing names in this sometimes. Next theory is the Straw Hat ate a devil fruit. I had this theory since we learned that weapons can eat them, somehow, and come to life, essentially. And it's funny, but we've never actually seen the Straw Hat float, have we? I don't recall any moment. So if it can't swim, then it probably ate a devil fruit. I know it's around Luffy's neck all the time, and he's not wearing it, but it has to have flown off at some point. I have a theory that it's either the Fate fruit or the Rally fruit, the latter explaining why people end up siding with Luffy in the end anyway. But it could also be an ancient weapon. Yeah. The next theory is probably the most crazy one I have, but One Piece is basically a time loop, or at least a time travel theory. Remember how Luffy pretended to be Gol D. Roger and was saved by divine intervention? That's because he is Gol D. Roger. Maybe he had his power stolen by Blackbeard, then somehow got sent back in time and had to fend for himself. What did I say, fend for myself? That's weird. Which explains the crazy conqueror's haki and that Roger had, as well as Rayleigh, and Rayleigh might have stayed alive to meet Luffy, hence the loop. Which brings up another theory, the One Piece. As the name already implies, it's a piece. The story tells you whoever has it is the king of the pirates, but do we know that for sure? Because Loftel probably got its name because of, drumroll, absolutely nothing. It's just a pointless but important island in the trip, or journey even. The one piece of the puzzle missing, rather, is what I say. This was the final destination and found nothing, and all Roger could do was laugh, but there is another theory for that, and that is a Straw Hat again. It could be that One Piece solves the puzzle in fact, and Roger wasn't one for keeping treasures, so he probably didn't leave anything wherever he buried it. That said, we don't even know what the One Piece is either, and it's never actually been explained, not by Oden, not by Rayleigh, and certainly not by anyone else on board who may not be still alive. Yeah, that's the end of my theories. But now that there's some movie reviews, I skipped the first 9 due to them being undubbed, which is really lazy on their part because it seems like it would benefit from a dub at this point. I think one of them is responsible for the creepy Sanji moment where he gets to watch Nami grow up as a child, which actually happens. It's fucking weird. Anyway, let's get on to reviewing the movies. So, movie 10, Strong World. It's an okay movie, but you can easily skip it. I don't feel it with this movie. The animation was good. The voice acting was a bit dry because it seemed to have different voice actors, I think, from what I could tell anyway. Its main villain does only have a small mention in the Impel Down arc. So if you had to watch this, watch it right after Thriller Bark, because Impel Down happens sort of after that. But where this seems to take place just after, which is odd given the newest crew, remember Yo-Ho-Ho? But I can't recommend it really. There's nothing going on of note, just your typical tyrant villain and a rescue mission. You're not missing much of watching it, there's not even any noticeable lines or anything. One Piece Film Z is next. This is known for that one that made Sanji really creepy, like he accepts over Nami being younger. Anyway, besides that, the movie was actually good. A very good animation with a mix of 2D and 3D. It has a decent soundtrack too. Not that I really pay attention to it all that much, but the voice acting is amazing and seems to have all the OGs voicing it. But the story is kind of a letdown. It starts really strong, and the midpoint has a great explanation as to why said characters are the way they are. And so you get to the climax, and it is anticlimactic. No doubt about it. It felt very rushed. We also didn't get any closure on important details, and just to let you know, brief spoiler here. We don't know who the murderer was. We don't know why Zed changed his mind last second. We didn't even get a flashback, so it felt very disconnected in that sense. End of spoiler. Oh wait, no, it wasn't. Fuck. And tried to make a bad guy look like a good guy in the end, which failed. which is unusual because One Piece has had some good comebacks for villains, notably in Impel Down and Marineford. Would I recommend the movie? Not really. This is one you can maybe do without watching if you don't have anything. Just do without watching, but if you don't have anything else to watch or just love One Piece that much, it's good. I only watch it after the Fisherman Island arc since it seems to take place after that. It seems to be foreshadowed in it, I think, in a sense. Or in the in-between part anyway. Yeah, I did recommend it, didn't I? I did sort of explain why. Yeah, all that. The next film is Gold. Honestly, very good. I don't really think it's that better than Zed, but it does a lot of things well and didn't have a bad story. It has a really good noticeable OST. The voice acting is really good, like especially Lars Brooks. Lars Brooks, They Got Me, followed by some of the best screams yet. And the animation was really good. Like some janky 3D here and there. It's still good. It's also quite to the point. I'm surprised how much they fit into 2 hours given the amount of lore there is about Granted Zero and yeah. It had a pretty satisfying ending and a funny one for that matter. You'll see what I mean if you watch it. Story wise it's really good. Admittedly there's one cliche I didn't like that happens a lot for some reason with villains. But it's good other than that. I can recommend this movie, it's a good watch. As for when to watch it, I think after the mini movie, after Dressrosa. What is a mini movie? I can't remember. Oh yeah, there's like a little girl thing, and it was played on Crunchyroll. There was a mini movie after that where the Straw Hats go after these treasure-seeking pirates, I think, with a weird little girl. It's weird. It's hard to pinpoint when exactly it takes place in the story because, well, half the crew wasn't out at the point, so it doesn't make sense in that case, but still, after Dressrosa is probably a safer place to watch it when you meet the little girl anyway. As if she even appeared, actually, that's a good point. I don't know when she appeared. It's one piece confusing. The next film is Stampede, and this takes place after the weird filler episodes, which results in the Pirate Festival thing being thrown around. So I think you need to watch this movie after that. That side of the movie was good. It's not as good as Gold in my opinion, but it's still pretty damn good. It also has some interesting twists here and there, but overall it seemed to be a race to fit in as many characters as possible, which is to its detriment too. Other than that, the animation is good, the voice acting is good, and I do think it has one important lore point, that being the end of the movie where something unexpected happens, though to be fair I actually expected it. Surprisingly, the most unpredictable things were predictable. What a weird movie. I could recommend it though. One Piece film read, and what a way to end binge watching One Piece with a bad movie. People might be surprised to hear that, and I genuinely think this was one of the least enjoyable moments in One Piece, probably because probably the most unenjoyable film besides 10 and the odd filler in the anime. At the start of the good, the animation is decent, the 3D is a bit jarring. It seems like the 3D animators have no concept of frame rate, which is a bit odd. The voice actor was okay, but not as good as it could have been. And visually speaking, it is starting to look out though. I mean, the sort of art style and stuff, background is amazing. But this leads on to the bad points. While I consider the story generally good, I just didn't feel as well executed in certain areas, partly due to the lack of dubbing and music and how Uta was basically inserted into the anime. But for this movie, and included, well, I know this is still an extension. Yeah, there's a part in the anime where part of the movie was spoiled somehow. So it's just bizarre. Anyway, back onto the point. So the music was awful in my opinion. I wouldn't have cared if it wasn't dubbed. It's still bad. Instrumentally, it does nothing, and to me, it just sounds like it stays in one key all the time. Vocally, we've heard it all before, especially if you know Japanese singers. Singing-wise, it isn't good either. It also just feels awkward going from English voice actor to a Japanese singer. There's no fluidity to it. And when Funimation got hold of this show, I would have thought they would have put the effort in like 4Kids did initially, with like the intros and outro songs being dubbed. But no, they did not. They put One Piece to shame and became a very stale, lazy company. They can't even be bothered to subtitle the songs. So it's not like there was effort. There wasn't any. And I am having a bad day of writing this, so that could contribute to it. The other thing I just hate... Wait, what? The other thing is I just hate how song dots actually become the main focus on what was on screen. They also tried to fit so many characters in again. But yeah, overall, I just didn't like the movie. It's missing a few things to really push it over the edge to make it a good movie. I do not recommend it. And you can do it without watching it, it's fine. So I did write down the watch order briefly. Just like with the movies, except for the undubbed ones. This is just with the dubs, so East Blue through to Thriller Bark, then Movie 10, then Sub Odie through to Fisherman Islands, then Film Z, then Pug Hazard to Dressrosa and the Little Girl movie I mentioned, then Film Gold, then Whole Cake Island, then the film Stampede when you hear of the Pirate Festival, then Cider Gold Arc. Wait, I've got Film Stampede twice. It's the Cider Gold Arc and then Film Stampede. Anyway, Wonder Arc after that. For some reason there's a bit of filler in there, but you need to watch Film Red if you want to. And then the rest of the Wonder Arc, and then Egghead Island, which is the current arc at the moment. Holy shit, this series is amazing though, all things considered. It's easily become my favourite series ever. No doubt about it. And you'll probably be seeing more like influence and references from One Piece here on my channel. I've still got a few metal covers to do actually for them. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's like 5 more covers to do. Yeah, it's a great series and obviously I recommend it. And obviously stay tuned for the scrolling text. The sort of summary that I did. I think it's about 20,000 words or more. It's nuts how long it is. Anyway, thanks for watching and see you on another time.